The truth tonight about taking a daily multivitamin. A major study finding while specific ones are good for diagnosed deficiencies, they do not help people live longer.
Australians spend more on vitamins and supplements per person than almost any other country on Earth, and most of it is wasted. Not because the idea is wrong. The idea is fine. The problem is what is actually inside the bottle, the forms of ingredients your body cannot absorb. The dose is too small to do anything meaningful. The trusted Australian brand, names now owned by foreign multinationals, cutting costs from a boardroom on the other side of the world. The label is not lying to you exactly. It is just not telling you the full story. 8 brands, billions of dollars, and a regulatory system that puts the burden of proof on you, not them. We start with the most shocking one. Brand 1, Swisse Wellness. Pick up a bottle of Swisse and it feels like it belongs here. The colors, the clean design, the athlete on the front looking like the picture of Australian health. Swisse has spent decades building exactly that feeling. Premium, local, trustworthy, the kind of brand you recommend to your mum. The kind your obstetrician sees on the shelf and does not immediately question. Here is what the front of the bottle does not tell you. In 2015, Swisse was sold, not to another Australian health company, not to someone with a background in nutrition or naturopathy, to Biostime, a Hong Kong-listed infant formula company that later rebranded as Health and Happiness Group. The sale price was 1.7 billion Australian dollars. The brand that built its identity on Australian wellness is now a wholly owned subsidiary of a Chinese multinational listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. The marketing did not change, the ownership did. And the product itself has questions attached to it. Choice Magazine, one of Australia's most respected independent consumer organizations, has questioned whether the proprietary blends across multiple Swisse product lines contain sufficient doses of each ingredient to deliver the claimed benefit. Proprietary blends are a legal way of listing ingredients without disclosing the exact amount of each one. The ingredient is on the label. The dose may not be meaningful. For a senior, taking Swisse daily on the assumption it is supporting bone density or immune function, that gap matters. For a pregnant woman paying premium prices for a prenatal multivitamin on the basis of the brand's positioning, that gap matters significantly more. The Therapeutic Goods Administration registers these products. It does not independently verify the efficacy of every formulation before it reaches the shelf. That verification burden sits entirely with the consumer. Swisse is not unique in exploiting that gap, but it is the brand charging the most for doing it. The next brand has been in Australian bathrooms for decades. The label has barely changed. The science behind it tells a very different story. Brand 2, Centrum. Your parents took it. Their parents probably took it too. That is the quiet power of Centrum. It does not need to advertise aggressively. It does not need a celebrity ambassador or a glossy wellness campaign. It just sits there on the pharmacy shelf, silver and familiar. And 3 generations of Australian families reach for it on autopilot. Complete, trusted, the one that has always been there. That familiarity is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Centrum is owned by Haleon, a consumer health company spun out of a merger between Pfizer and GlaxoSmithKline. It is publicly listed and operates with the cost optimization priorities of any global pharmaceutical giant. The brand Australians associate with everyday family health is a product line managed from a multinational boardroom with quarterly margin targets. But the ownership is not the most important part of this story. The ingredients are. Centrum uses synthetic folic acid rather than methylfolate. It uses cyanocobalamin rather than methylcobalamin. These are cheaper forms of the same vitamins. They are also significantly less bioavailable for a substantial portion of the population. Research suggests that somewhere between 40 and 60% of Australians carry a variant of the MTHFR gene that reduces the body's ability to convert synthetic folic acid into the active form the body actually uses. For most people, that is an invisible problem. For pregnant women and children, it is not a small one. A family buying Centrum for their kids every morning, assuming the tablet is filling nutritional gaps, may be buying a product their children's bodies are only partially able to process. The tablet is dissolving, the nutrients are present, but the form of those nutrients is optimized for manufacturing cost, not absorption. The label does not mention any of this. The label never does. Subscribe now if you want to know what to look for instead. That is coming before the end of this video. The next brand does not even attempt to compete on quality. It competes entirely on price, and that price is telling you something important if you know how to read it. Brand 3, Coles and Woolworths. Own brand multivitamins. The price is the whole argument. It is right there on the shelf next to the branded options. A bottle containing 30 tablets for a fraction of what Swisse or Blackmores charges. Same claims on the label. Same list of vitamins and minerals. For a family watching the grocery bill, it looks like an obvious decision. Why pay 4 times the price for the same thing? Because it is not the same thing. Own brand multivitamins sold through Kohl's and Woolworths are manufactured by contract laboratories. The ingredient sourcing in those facilities is driven by one priority above all others: cost. The vitamins on the label are present. The question is whether they are present in a form your body can actually use, in a dose that means anything, inside a tablet that will dissolve before it leaves your digestive system. That last point is not a hypothetical. Dissolution testing on low-cost supplement tablets has found that some pass through the body largely intact. The tablet did not break down in time. The nutrients never entered the bloodstream. The body processed the tablet the same way it processes anything else it cannot use. For a healthy adult with no underlying conditions, that is a waste of money. For a diabetic whose body already manages nutrient absorption differently, or for a senior whose digestive function has slowed with age, it is a more consequential problem. The supplement they are taking to support their health is not reaching the places it needs to reach. The Therapeutic Goods Administration requires these products to be registered. It does not require pre-market efficacy testing. It does not require dissolution testing before a product hits the shelf. A product can be legally registered and functionally useless at the same time. The supermarket brand is honest about one thing. The price tells you exactly what went into it. The next brand is less honest. It charges premium prices while running the same low-cost ingredient model behind a label designed to make you feel otherwise. Brand 4. Nature's Own. The word is right there on the label. Natural. It is doing a significant amount of work. It conjures something specific. Ingredients sourced carefully. Formulations built around what the body recognizes. A product that earns the word on its packaging rather than simply printing it there because nobody can stop them. Here is the part that matters. In Australia, nobody can stop them. The Therapeutic Goods Administration does not require a product to meet any specific threshold to use the word natural on its packaging. It is a marketing decision, a design choice. It carries no regulatory definition and no legal obligation to back it up with anything measurable. The green packaging and the wholesome imagery are communicating something that Australian law does not require Nature's Own to actually deliver. Nature's Own is owned by Integria Healthcare. Integria Healthcare is private equity-backed. The same cost optimization model running through every other brand on this list runs through Nature's Own. The ingredient forms across the range follow the same pattern as Centrum and the supermarket brands. Cheaper synthetic forms over more bioavailable alternatives. Lower cost inputs behind a label positioned to justify a mid-range price point. For an athlete buying Nature's Own on the basis of the natural positioning, the decision feels sound. Clean ingredients. Nothing artificial. A product that fits the discipline they bring to everything else in their training. But natural on a supplement label in Australia means nothing enforceable. The athlete is making a purchasing decision based on a word that the brand chose for its marketing impact rather than its accuracy. For someone with allergies, the stakes are higher. A product presenting itself as natural carries an implied promise about what is not in it. That promise is not backed by any regulatory requirement. The allergen risk profile of a contract manufactured supplement using that word is not meaningfully different from one that does not. The label is not lying. It is just not saying anything that the law requires it to mean. Subscribe now. The next brand is where this investigation gets personal because this one is aimed directly at children. Brand 5. Gummy vitamins. They smell like lollies. They taste like lollies. And for a lot of Australian children, that is exactly what they are. The gummy vitamin category has been one of the fastest growing segments in the Australian supplement market for years. The reasoning behind it is sound enough. Children do not want to swallow tablets. Gummies solve that problem. Bright packaging, fruit flavors, shapes that make kids ask for them rather than resist them. For a parent trying to cover nutritional gaps in a fussy eater, it feels like a genuine solution. The science behind the format tells a more complicated story. Gummy vitamins consistently contain lower doses of active ingredients than their tablet equivalents. This is not a cost-cutting decision unique to budget brands. It is a manufacturing reality. The process of setting vitamins into a gummy base degrades certain nutrients during production. The dose that goes in is not always the dose that survives the process. Fat-soluble vitamins are particularly vulnerable. Vitamins A, D, E, and K degrade faster in gummy format than in tablet or capsule form. That degradation continues after the bottle is sealed. The vitamin on the label at the time of manufacturing may not be the vitamin in the bottle by the time it reaches the child. And then there is the sugar. Many gummy vitamin formulations sold in Australian pharmacies and supermarkets contain between 2 and 4 grams of sugar per serving. A child taking 2 gummies a day as directed is consuming added sugar with every dose. Parents who have removed sugary snacks from their child's diet and replaced them with gummy vitamins have not necessarily removed the sugar. They have repackaged it as health. A children's multivitamin should be closing nutritional gaps. The gummy format, in many of the products currently on Australian shelves, is not the right tool for that job. The child reaching into the bottle thinks it is a treat. In a lot of cases, they are not entirely wrong. The next brand is not aimed at children. It is aimed at Australians who have been loyal to it for decades, and the story behind it will change how you see it. Brand 6. Blackmores. This one feels different. And that is exactly the problem. Blackmores is not a faceless multinational that parachuted into the Australian market with a generic product and aggressive pricing. Marcus Blackmore spent decades building something that felt genuinely connected to naturopathic principles and Australian health culture. The brand earned its place in Australian medicine cabinets the slow way, through trust, through consistency, through a reputation that accumulated over generations. That reputation is now owned by Kirin Holdings. In 2022, Kirin Holdings, a Japanese conglomerate best known globally for its beer and beverage operations, acquired Blackmores for approximately 1.88 billion Australian dollars. The transaction was completed quietly. There was no significant public conversation about what it meant for the brand. Australians had built a relationship with over 50 years. The naturopathic heritage that Marcus Blackmore spent his career constructing is now a wholly owned subsidiary of a company whose core business is selling alcoholic drinks in Asian markets. That does not automatically make the products worse, but it does change the question you should be asking. The decisions about formulation, ingredient sourcing, and cost structure at Blackmores are now made inside a multinational corporate framework with shareholder return expectations that have nothing to do with naturopathic principles. And the product range reflects that tension. Ingredient quality across the Blackmores line varies significantly depending on which product you are looking at. Some formulations use better ingredient forms. Others follow the same cost-optimized pattern as every other brand on this list. The premium price point does not uniformly signal premium formulation. For a senior who has taken Blackmores for 30 years on the basis of a relationship built with a very different company, that distinction matters. For a cancer patient managing their health carefully and paying for supplements they believe are genuinely supporting their recovery, it matters considerably more. The brand has not disappeared. The trust Australians placed in it was real, but the entity that trust now belongs to is not the one that earned it. The next brand on this list operates through an entirely different model, and it has been reaching Australians through their phones, their social media feeds, and their closest friendships. Brand 7. MLM Vitamins. It did not come from a pharmacy shelf. It came from a friend. That is the entire model. Someone you know, someone you trust, someone whose before and after photos looked compelling enough to make you listen. They are not a nutritionist. They are not a pharmacist. They are a distributor. And the product they are selling you has been priced to accommodate every person in the chain between the manufacturer and your front door. Multi-level marketing vitamin brands operating in Australia include names like Herbalife, USANA, Advocare, and Manatech. The products are not sold through pharmacies or supermarkets. They move through networks of individual distributors earning commission on every sale. That commission structure does not disappear when the price is set. It gets built in. What you are paying for is not just the supplement, it is the upline, and the products themselves carry questions that a pharmacy shelf would force them to answer. Health claims made by MLM distributors on Australian social media regularly drift well beyond what the Therapeutic Goods Administration permits for listed medicines. The distributor is not a regulated health professional. The claim they make in a Facebook post or an Instagram story carries no accountability. If the product does not perform as described, there is no pharmacy, no retailer, no regulated point of sale to return it to. The person who sold it to you is just a friend who tried something and wanted to share it. Independent laboratory analysis of MLM supplement products sold in Australia has found significant discrepancies between label claims and actual ingredient levels. What is on the label and what is in the capsule are not always the same number. For someone with allergies buying on the basis of a friend's recommendation with no third-party verification, no regulated retail accountability, and no independent testing, the risk profile is meaningfully higher than anything else on this list. The trust that makes this model work is real. The product behind it does not always deserve it. The next one is the most surprising entry on this list, because it is not a scandal. It is something quieter, and it is in more Australian homes than every other brand here combined. Brand 8, Baraka. You know the sound, the fizz hitting the water, the tablet dissolving in the glass, turning everything that specific shade of orange, the ritual of it. Morning light, kitchen bench, the feeling that you are doing something good for yourself before the day starts. Baraka has been part of that morning moment for Australians since the 1960s. It is the hangover vitamin, the productivity vitamin, the one you reach for when everything else feels like too much effort. It is also owned by Bayer AG, the German pharmaceutical giant, a company with annual revenues in the tens of billions of euros, managing Baraka as one-line item in a global consumer health portfolio. But the ownership is not the most important part of this story either. The formula is. Baraka's core proposition is built on water-soluble B vitamins and vitamin C. These are real nutrients. They perform real functions in the body. The problem is not what they are. The problem is who needs them. Water-soluble vitamins are not stored by the body. Any excess above what the body requires on a given day is excreted. If you are eating a reasonably balanced diet, which most Australians do most of the time, your B vitamin and vitamin C levels are likely already adequate. The Baraka tablet is not filling a gap. It is supplementing something that does not need supplementing. The bright orange color of the glass every morning is not evidence that something meaningful is happening. It is largely riboflavin leaving your body in your urine within hours of taking the tablet. The ritual feels productive. The biochemistry is more ambiguous. Baraka does not harm you. That is an important distinction from everything else on this list. But harm and benefit are not the only two options. There is a third outcome, nothing. And for the price Australians pay for Baraka daily across a year, nothing is not a good return. Go and check your medicine cabinet right now. If Baraka is in there, ask yourself one question. When did a blood test last tell you that you needed it? Now let us talk about what actually works. 8 brands, billions of dollars, and the same pattern running through all of them. Ownership structures built around margin extraction, ingredient forms chosen for manufacturing cost rather than absorption, marketing language that carries no regulatory weight, and a registration system that puts the burden of proof on you, not them. The Therapeutic Goods Administration registers these products. It does not verify them. A supplement can be legally listed and functionally useless at the same time. Those two things coexist on pharmacy shelves across Australia every single day. The supplement industry counted on Australians not reading past the front of the bottle. Here is what happens when you do. Safe pick 1. Metagenics. Metagenics is a practitioner-grade supplement brand. That distinction matters. Practitioner-grade means the products are formulated to a higher standard than what sits on the average pharmacy shelf. It means the ingredient forms are selected for bioavailability rather than cost. Methylfolate instead of synthetic folic acid. Methylcobalamin instead of cyanocobalamin. The forms the body actually recognizes and uses rather than the cheaper alternatives that dominate the consumer market. Metagenics operates in Australia with local distribution and a formulation philosophy built around clinical application rather than retail margin. The products are typically available through naturopaths, integrative doctors, and selected health practitioners rather than supermarket shelves. That distribution model is intentional. These are products designed to be recommended by someone who understands what is in them. The price is higher than anything else discussed in this video. That is not a coincidence. It reflects ingredient quality, formulation rigor, and a manufacturing standard that the consumer market largely does not require. For a senior managing multiple health conditions and taking supplements as a genuine part of their health protocol, Metagenics represents a meaningful step up from anything on the avoid list. For a pregnant woman who needs to know her folate is in a form her body can actually convert, it is not a luxury. It is the point. It will not be found at Woolies. That is also not a coincidence. Safe pick 2. Bioceuticals. Bioceuticals sits in a similar practitioner-grade category to Metagenics and carries many of the same formulation principles. Methylated B vitamins, bioavailable mineral forms, transparent dosing rather than proprietary blends that obscure how much of each ingredient is actually present. There is a complication worth naming. Bioceuticals is now owned by Blackmores, which means it sits inside the Kirin Holdings corporate structure discussed earlier in this video. That ownership context is relevant and worth knowing. What has not changed, at least to date, is the formulation standard. Bioceuticals products are still formulated and distributed through the practitioner channel. The clinical team responsible for the product range has maintained the standard that built the brand's reputation among Australian naturopaths and integrative health practitioners. The honest position is this: the ownership is a flag worth watching. The product, right now, remains meaningfully better than the consumer market alternatives. If that changes, the practitioner community will notice before the general public does, and that community talks. For athletes looking for a multivitamin that actually supports what they are asking their bodies to do, Bioceuticals is worth the conversation with a practitioner. For families wanting a children's formulation built around absorption rather than palatability, the range offers options the gummy vitamin category simply cannot match. Available through naturopaths, integrative GPs, and selected compounding pharmacies across Australia. Safe Pick 3. IRB-certified brands. Not every Australian has access to a naturopath. Not everyone can justify the price point of practitioner-grade supplements. That is a real constraint, and it deserves a real answer. The iHerb platform gives Australians access to international supplement brands certified by independent third-party testing organizations. The two worth knowing are NSF International and the United States Pharmacopeia, known as USP. These are independent bodies that verify what is on the label is actually in the bottle. They test for ingredient accuracy, contamination, and in some cases dissolution. Their certification mark on a supplement label means something enforceable, unlike the word natural. Brands available through iHerb carrying NSF or USP certification include Thorne Research and Pure Encapsulations. Both use bioavailable ingredient forms. Both publish their formulations transparently. Both have been independently tested and verified. The price through iHerb is significantly lower than practitioner-grade Australian brands. The quality gap between these products and the brands on the avoid list is significant. For a diabetic managing their health carefully on a budget, or for someone with allergies who needs to know exactly what is in every capsule they swallow, the iHerb certified category is the most accessible entry point into supplementation that actually does what it claims. Shipping to Australia is straightforward. The certification marks are visible on the product listings, and the difference between a verified supplement and an unverified one, once you start looking, is not subtle. Outro. Nobody is coming to fix the supplement aisle. The Therapeutic Goods Administration will not begin independently testing every multivitamin before it reaches the shelf. The brands on the avoid list will not reformulate their products out of goodwill. The MLM distributor will not stop making claims that drift past what the regulations permit. The only thing standing between an Australian consumer and a cabinet full of expensive, largely useless tablets is the information to make a better decision. You now have that information. Check the ownership. Check the ingredient forms. Look for methylfolate, not folic acid. Methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin. Look for third-party certification marks from NSF or USP. Look for transparent dosing rather than proprietary blends. And ask yourself whether the word natural on the label is backed by anything other than a graphic designer's decision. Send this to someone who hands their kids a gummy vitamin every morning thinking they are doing the right thing. Send it to the person still buying Swisse because it has always been there. Send it to the mate who started taking an MLM supplement because someone they trusted told them to. Subscribe for the next investigation and drop a comment with the brand that surprised you most on this list. The industry is counting on your loyalty being unconditional. Make sure it is not.